And we're live. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of 305 Takes. And today we got a good show for you guys. We had some crazy stuff happen in the sports world ever since we last went on. We were on Friday with our good friend Moises, and we talked fantasy football, some of the games for the weekend, and a lot has happened. A lot has happened ever since we last spoke. Our fantasy playoff matchup, me and Miles went against each other. We'll talk about that later. But I think we got to start with the Dolphins Packers. But before we do that, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, E2G Sports, who helped bring 305 Takes to YouTube live so that way you guys can watch us on real time instead of hearing us recorded on Spotify, Anchor, and all those platforms. Now we're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We're on a variety of platforms now, giving you guys a live broadcast of our podcast, and you can rewatch it anytime you want and play it whenever you want now. So we thank E2G for that. So now let's get started. And Miles, yesterday was Christmas Day. It's supposed to be a day of giving. Like you're with your family members, you're happy, you're doing all the great stuff, and then as a bonus, football was on. So you're like, awesome! I could watch some football. I could be entertained for a good moment, and then on Sunday, we had a slate of games that just were simply not good. The matchups were just but one game was close, and it was the Dolphins Packers. That game was close very much throughout the whole entirety of the game. And let's just say one particular player that we spoke about on this podcast, we've kind of said he's not that good, was awful. And I think awful was probably the nicest word I can do. And I know how much the Dolphins mean to you. So before I even start, I do have to ask you the question. If you're a part of the Dolphins front office, bro, do you bring Tua back?
So this is going to be an interesting decision because we seen a couple of teams make going into this offseason make moves at quarterback to try to bring in a new face of the franchise, and it's kind of backfired in pretty horrendous ways. And Denver with Russell Wilson, Cleveland bringing in Deshaun Watson. So I mean, I think for the Dolphins, you're kind of stuck, and I just don't understand what happened yesterday because it's not like Tua had a completely bad game. It's just that he fell apart in the second half, and I really don't know how else to explain it other than that. Because before halftime, his stats were 9 of 12, 229 yards, and a touchdown,
Yep.
and the play to Waddle was great design, looked like the Dolphins that we have seen at different times this year. And then in the second half, it just completely fell apart. And, you know, I do want to give Tua a break because this is a player, obviously, on my favorite football team. And as we've seen throughout the NFL for, I would say, basically the last 10 years, you need a quarterback to be any type of successful, whether it's just making it to the playoffs, whether it's winning a playoff game. When we're talking about it on the podcast, a lot of it comes down to, do we trust his quarterback? Do we trust his quarterback against his defense? Whether it be, and in Tua's case, do we trust the quarterback in, cold weather? It's different factors that can affect your trust in the quarterback. And, you know, Tua was like, "Oh, I kept the receipts for everything." And one of the things that stuck back to me because I saw the poster in the stands, it was J.C. Jackson, and he said, "We know what Tua is going to do because he's a one-read quarterback." And honestly, two, maybe three of those picks seemed like he knew exactly where he wanted to throw the ball, and that's what he was going to do. Because the one to Tyreek Hill, where Jair Alexander
He
picked it
just
off,
simply threw the ball to Tyreek like if he was 6'5".
and it also like just doesn't make sense because they had Waddle and Tyreek on that side.
Mm-hmm.
When they showed the replay of the pick, there's literally like six Green Bay Packers over there, like playing a zone. And okay, yeah, you can say the ball got away from him, he just air melted, but that's a point in the. I was texting in a group chat with a couple of my friends that are Dolphins fans. If you're a playoff team, that's when you capitalize. Rodgers, you just came off your cornerback catching his first career interception in the end zone. In the end zone. And probably defensive pass interference if we're being completely honest. If we're being completely honest, I was a little surprised that they didn't call it. And if they call it there, it's going to be in the end zone, so the Packers would have got the ball at the one. Teams that make the playoffs and that are good capitalize on that turnover. either whether it's a long drive that leads to 7 and sort of kind of puts the game on ice, or if it's a long drive that leads to 3 points, at least it's almost a 10-point swing because you could be in a situation where the Packers get the ball at the 1. Most likely they're going to punch it in for a touchdown at that point. Instead of being down by 7, you could actually have the lead of 3, and to throw that pick in that situation is like, all right, like do we even have a guy that we semi trust back there? And the offense was clicking, and this is a Packers defense that, while they might have names that we know of, whether it's
I just think we're
Campbell,
not good.
yeah, whether it's Jair Alexander, it's not a defense that I think anybody is scared of or has been scared of at any point this year. And we've me and you have mentioned that Monday night game. Was it Monday night or Sunday night where they played the Eagles?
It's Sunday night.
Sunday night, and Jalen Hurts had 100 yards rushing in the first half. So like it's a defense that will, they're kind of like in the bend don't break, but they give up the yards. And I was thinking going into the game, and they were able to capitalize on it. I just think that they're simply faster. Like I don't think the Packers, especially defensively, had any answer for Waddle or Hill, but the quarterback just malfunctioned in the second half. And now, like as a Dolphins fan, like I got PTSD from everything I've seen at the quarterback position for my entire lifetime, and it kind of feels like Tannehill 2.0. And it's not even a diss because Tannehill left us, went to Tennessee, and has gone to the playoffs multiple times. Went to an AFC Championship game, so it's not like, all right, he's bad, but everything kind of seems like it needs to be perfect in order for him to succeed. And I mean, that's not really what you want from a quarterback that you take 4th overall and has the weapons that they went out and upgraded for him and an offensive minded coach.
Yeah, because bro, that first pick was bad. Second pick, you could say it was miscommunication between him and Mostert. Cool, I can live with that one.
But
But
once
then
again,
the third one, bro, that one was
yeah,
bad.
the
That
third one was just like, all right, just punch me in the face on
yeah,
Christmas, please, too.
like
Thank you.
oh my gosh.
But then again, the second one, it's like, all right, even if Mostert runs the wrong route, like, does everything have to be like everything needs to be perfect for him? Like
Yeah,
the receivers
like
can't fall down, they can't slip, they can't. Nothing can be like because he knows where he's going, and that
yeah,
and the thing is like, all right, Campbell also made a good play, like he read the
yeah.
quarterback's eyes, but no one was around.
No
Like
one was around.
if Campbell doesn't pick that off, that ball is like at somebody's feet. Like there's nobody else around to catch that ball.
Yeah, I mean it was
Eh,
definitely a bad showing because this team was 8-3 at one point.
yeah.
Now they're 8-7, and they're on the fringe of not making the playoffs. Which, as much as I hate to say this to me, if they don't make the playoffs, I think the Dolphins front office, if they know there's a better option out there that they can somewhat get, I feel like they're gonna pull the trigger.
So there's two things regarding that. It's one, I don't know necessarily how they feel internally because I know Mike McDaniel has been talking them up all season, and he took the job, and Tua was already here, so I'm sure he had plans for him already. So I don't know what the temperature is for him inside the building, but regardless of how you look at it, whether you're in your corner, whether you think they should move on, he's out of excuses. Like that's
Yeah,
it. You could
no,
say, all right, first year he was still working back from the injury, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Second year, Flores wasn't the biggest fan of Tua, preferred Ryan Fitzpatrick. Chan Gailey, offensive coordinator. Last year, co-offensive coordinators. We're seeing how that's working out in New England. All right, cut excuse, cut excuse, cut excuse. Now, all right, we've traded for Tyreek Hill. We bring you an offensive-minded head coach. We drafted Jalen Waddle for you last year. We signed Teron Armstead. We upgraded the running game. Like, regardless of where you stand, and especially internally, you can't say that they haven't done everything to try to
yeah,
make the kid succeed. And then the second part is there just so happens to be a quarterback that is a free agent this summer who hails from South Florida. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at that. We'll talk about that as we go into the offseason. But internally, I think both of those things have to be discussed.
yeah.
Is the
No, it's true.
quarterback not living up to expectations? Second, do we move on? Maybe have a hometown reunion for a guy that's had, I would say, at least one of his best games of all time here at the stadium, and is a hometown kid. So, and to your point about going into the game, the Dolphins entered Sunday with an 83% chance to make the playoffs, according to 538. They left after the loss at 67%. And Tua, he still has the 2 weeks to kind of get people back on his side. If they go 2-0, they're still in the playoffs. So even though yesterday was a real gut punch, the team still controls their own destiny. But I feel like I've been saying this for the last 2 years going into the last two games. So
Yep.
I don't know how I'm supposed to have any confidence.
I mean, you kind of said it best. I mean, when we did the quarterbacks, like in a name, a sentence, or a word, and you said it, you go, if the Dolphins have better quarterback play those years, they make the playoffs. And I didn't disagree. And I was like, I was all in. And it's like upgrade at quarterback because I don't think Tua is that guy. And when I look after the game, I looked at their schedule. I'm going to read off all their wins and then read off all their losses. And you tell me how many good teams legitimately they played. The Patriots, Baltimore, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, Houston. Those are all their wins. How many like legit good teams did they play?
Uh, I mean, New England and Pittsburgh, I would say, are whatever. Like, all right,
Yeah,
you can say, all right, decent wins, right? And then, but both of those games are at home. And then Buffalo and Baltimore are the only two teams that are guaranteed playoffs right now. So
yeah.
outside of that, and the Baltimore game was, I mean, you might say it's
Baltimore
fluky.
lost that game more than
Yeah, you and that was a road game, and then the Buffalo game was at home in the 1,000-degree heat where the Bills decided to run 90 plays. So I think those are definitely two of the biggest wins that they've had all year. And if you look at the schedule, they basically have beaten everybody you expected them to beat, but they haven't beaten any of the teams where you're like,
yep.
all right, that's a really, really, really quality win. Like they did
Like
get the Buffalo and Baltimore
mhm,
game early in the season, but then you look at San Francisco, Los Angeles, the Chargers, Buffalo, and Green Bay. Those are four games where I mean, if you would have told me if they would have gone 2-2, I would have been like, all right, yeah, that
yeah.
seems reasonable. But
And
0
then
and
not
4, 0 and
not
4, I would have been like, come on.
not to mention the three losses they had against Cincinnati, the Jets, and the Vikings.
Yeah, but that's
Even
backup
though it
quarterbacks and stuff.
was
Yeah.
there, it's still bad because now the Dolphins are 8-7. They need to do something these last 2 weeks just to get in the playoffs because that's what all it was. It's like people are saying give two a shot, but man, it's not looking great. And right now, I think Brian Flores is probably owed an apology because he wanted Herbert, but the owner's like, nope, we're going taking Tua, and I think it led to a lot of bad tension for Tua,
And it's
and then
crazy because Flores goes 1-7, wins 8 in a row to go 8-7. The
mhm,
Dolphins, I mean, what they win 5 in a row in November to
yeah.
before December started, and you're like, oh wow! And now look at them, 8-7 again after a 4 game losing streak. And honestly, when we looked at the schedule, and even when we did that podcast about the quarterback, I said what I said about Tua, but right after that, I followed it up with I want him to prove me wrong. Like I'm a
Yep.
fan of this team, and just if you look at a big picture, we've talked about them, pretty much every week, and we've talked about the schedule. The first 4 games were tough. They went 3-1 in those first 4 games, losing at Cincinnati when Tua gets out. After that, they rip off all the wins. They get Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, Houston. All teams that honestly are not very
You
good.
should beat.
Yeah, and I mean Detroit and Pittsburgh have, kind of gotten momentum later in the season, but not at that point where they played them. And honestly, Pittsburgh, if you look back at it, could have won that game. And I know that,
They could
we
have.
had the Iganagabi pick at the end to win that one. So that was a tough one. Detroit, you look at back at it, not it's an impressive win, but Dolphins didn't put them away or anything like that. So and then you go into this 4 game stretch and it's 0-4.
There's
So I
the
don't know.
only good game they played was at Buffalo. Outside of that, the rest of the games
Yeah.
they were just simply not good.
Yeah, and it was super encouraging. At least I thought how they played at Buffalo. The fact that they were able to run the ball, Tua looked a lot better than he had coming off the San Francisco and the Chargers game. So, and then they just started so hot in the first half.
And then
They
it
just
just
started
went
so hot in the
crashing
first half,
down.
and then they got the fumble, and then at halftime, I was sitting there like, "There's no way that they close it out." And then they got the pick. And the thing is that Green Bay, one, made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
2, it was basically kitchen sink for them. I mean, they went for it, what, 3 times in the first half on 4th down?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's insane. Like, it was kitchen sink. Like, they knew their backs were against the wall and basically were just like, "All right, we're gonna go out swinging." And you look at their stats, it makes no sense. They ran 65 plays for 301 yards, dude.
Yep.
301 yards. The Dolphins starting quarterback almost had that amount of yards in the first half.
It's definitely not pretty. And I mean, we'll see on Friday. We're going to talk
That
about
was
their
such
next.
a tough loss, man, on Christmas. I was like, "Oh." This is not real right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely tough. We're gonna
And Sanders might be the worst kicker in the NFL. That's the last thing I have to say. I hope he's out of the NFL. I hope he is out of the NFL, man. I can't stand that guy.
well, you guys can't say Miles does not have love for this team because it's definitely showing. But we will talk about the Dolphins on Friday before their Nets game, and their Nets game is against New England at New England. We will talk about that on Friday, give our takes. But now, man, we got to talk about this. And well, me and Miles played each other in fantasy football over the weekend, and oh gosh,
In the semifinals for our league. So,
yep,
and we talked about it with Moises on Friday and how it could be, an awkward podcast today, depending on the results. And we had mentioned that most of our players were gonna be playing on Saturday on Christmas Eve, and that's basically where our matchup would be decided. But it was honestly one of those games where it's like, I don't even wanna check my app because I left for a Christmas Eve party, and I think, because when we started our projections were pretty similar. I think it was, like 52 your side, 48 my side, something like that,
yeah.
and then I leave for the Christmas party, I get there the Christmas Eve party, I get there, and it was like 60 in your person, and I'm like, "Ah, this is over." I had on Saturday, I had guys that really weren't doing anything. Pacheco didn't really do anything. McKinnon had gotten a touchdown at the point I checked, and I was like, "Oh, here we go, here we go." So that's what happened, and then George Kittle decided to go absolutely insane. And then Devontae Smith said, "Yo, I'm just gonna turn into Justin Jefferson against the Cowboys."
Arguably one of like the worst days of like the fantasy year. Just like when I say like it just sucker punched me right in the face. Like I was like, okay, I'm doing good. Like my team is doing fine. Like everyone, hear this. Like this is the final score. The final score is 162 to 138. So you're like, okay, Miles probably like took over at one point and everything. It was close for a good amount of time. Like I
For a
was,
long amount of time, I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna have a couple guys that scored 25 plus points and still not even be close." Because
yep,
and you look at your roster, it's not even like your guys didn't show up.
yep. My roster was projected to score 132. They scored 138 this week, and so I was like, they did enough.
Yeah,
But
they exceeded expectations.
yeah, like quarterbacks. Like if you guys hear this, everything I'm gonna name was like almost exactly similar. Quarterback. Kirk Cousins gave me 24. Joe Burrow gave Miles 23. Joe Burrow's obviously his two picks definitely hurt him a lot, so I was very happy with that one. Then running backs. Before James Conner last night, Jerick McKinnon had 12.8. Kenneth Walker had 12.5. So I was like, okay, cool. Like it's stagnant. Like it's right
Yeah,
there. Wide receivers after yesterday's game, he had Devontae Smith and Tyreek Hill. Devontae Smith gave him 31. Tyreek Hill gave him 14. Then you go to my side. Jefferson had 31. AJ Brown had 16. And I was like, okay, cool. It's right
I
there.
can't believe that Jefferson and Devonta Smith had exactly the
Same.
same amount of points. Like
And
they
then
literally canceled each other out.
the flex. I had Chris Godwin 14. He had Pacheco, gave him 10. So I was like, all right, it's stagnant there. His punter gave him nothing. My punter gave me 5. And I was like, okay, maybe that's 5 points can be the difference. Tucker gave me 8. Tyler Bass gave him 2.
Nothing.
Steelers defense, all because of Derek Carr. Derek Carr single-handedly helped them. Thanks, Derek. He got him 14 points. I had the Bucks defense that gave me 8. But then,
We
like,
said thanks, Derek.
yeah, thanks, Derek. And then he had James Conner who got him 25, and that helped him up. Dalvin Cook didn't really help me out that much with the 10. And then
And
the biggest,
again, for like the 17th
yeah.
week in a row,
And
can't
then,
figure out the flex.
but
Two
now,
guys on my bench that outscore the flex. And I'm like,
yep. But then now we come to the biggest difference in the whole thing tight ends. I had
oh
Schultz that
god.
had 7 points. Kittle had 30.
Kittle went crazy, dude.
And
Kittle went
once
crazy.
like, I left my house like at a certain point, and this was like before even like I think Heineke like just gave up the ball to the Commanders. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm good. I'm gonna go over there. Like I'm gonna do my Christmas stuff with my family, and I'll come back. I'll check it later. Then when I get to church, bro, I looked at the thing. I just like my vision just sunk. and like my whole like projection, because everyone knows and Miles knows, and I've said it. I built my team strictly for the last week of the season, like Championship Sunday. I built my team for that day, and just to see it all go up in flames, it was like it hurts. It definitely hurts. But now I know that there's a good there. It's 100% chance now the trophy's not going to be still at my home. It's going to be in someone else's place where I just have to go like now when I walk by it in my room, I'm like, it's gone.
But so I honestly, it was a great matchup because we did have those dramatic swings. Like when I first opened up, I was like, "Oh, this is over." Like I guess Angel's just gonna walk into the playoffs, and to score 163, 100 and how much did I get? 163,
Yeah.
162, and I was only projected 132, I believe. So if my projections would have stayed, if Kittle didn't go crazy and I didn't get 14 from Pittsburgh's defense, we would have had a definite sweat. Because if I would have stayed closer to that 132 and you were at 138, I honestly have I would have rather have been blown out than to have it been that
Yeah.
close. That
And
that was that was what I was working for.
now most likely you're going to be facing Nick in the finals, who only has some Justin Herbert left on his team to play,
Yeah,
and he
and
beat
he's already got
JP,
a
and
that
he arguably beat the hottest team in the playoffs because JP was just scoring like crazy, and now it's down to Miles and Nick.
Yeah, for the championship, winner take all.
The first
And
seed in each division ended up going to the
it's
championship
because the
game.
buy, man. The buy is too clutch. Too clutch. It's because of
The
the
bu
buy.
the buy would have, oh, man, it hurt Alex knowing that you took the buy and he didn't.
That's what I'm saying. If I didn't get that bye week one, I think we're having a completely different conversation. I don't even know if I'm playing you this week if we have that if we don't have that bye. But it was definitely a close matchup. I think even before just forget the score. It was definitely a close matchup because just running through the matchups like individually, running back versus quarterback, quarterback versus quarterback, we basically had a lot of guys do the same thing. And especially when you break it down, like, because even when we look at the receivers, all right, Jefferson and Devontae canceled each other out. I had Tyreek, you had AJ Brown. AJ Brown scored more points. Scored it only 2 points, but still, he broke that. You look at the flex, Godwin had 14. I had Pacheco had 10. But yeah, it was just those extras like the Pittsburgh. And I remember we were talking about it with Moises on Friday before when we did the podcast, and I was like, I don't know if I should start Pittsburgh's defense because they're only projected 5 points, and honestly, that was the closest I was to making a switch in the lineup outside of Goddard. Which if I would have put Goddard in, Goddard was fine coming off the injury at 9 points, and Kittle with the 30, I would have been so upset. Yo, you're muted. Yo, you're muted.
My fault. Yeah, I would
You
have
good?
said the matchup would have been so much closer. I feel like I would have had a much better shot at winning, but it is what it is. I can't be too upset because one, I mean, his team played great, and then to cap it off yesterday, James Conner gave him 25 points. That was
Which I
clutch.
don't even know how this guy does it, honestly. Like I
It
don't even
was
get it. Only 79 yards rushing. Like it's not like he went
all the
crazy.
patches he got.
Yeah, he had 7 receptions.
And then we'll talk about that one right after we do this and we give a quick break. We'll talk about that team because man, they just make me mad every time
Yeah.
they play football.
Yeah,
But
they're
man,
crazy.
now you're in the finals, man. You
Yeah,
made it
so
to the finals. You played in the highest scoring division with the three highest scorers all being at it 1, 2, and 3 in the same division. One of them was tied with you for the best record, and because of scoring, you you beat them. And it just
and I mean, I hope that means like, all right, like, all your hard work means, you get a nice little cakewalk through the championship game. That's what I'm hoping it means. No disrespect, no disrespect.
but I
But I
mean,
mean, I feel like I've gotten through the hard part of the schedule. Now it's time to celebrate. Put this one on ice.
well, I mean, we got to see because I'm gonna read you Nick's schedule. So at one point, Nick was He had 2 wins and 4 losses. He was 2-4, and he ends the season. Uh, he ends the season 8-6.
Damn.
So he went on a stretch where he was just winning, 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 winning. And I was like, man. And I said it in our podcast, like in the preview of the fantasy. I was like, hey, watch out for Nick. Nick's sneaky.
Yeah.
And just when you feel like you're not after like a guy in trade, Nick might come out and just like take him. Nick didn't actually make any trades this year, so that one kind of shocked me. I thought he would, but he made it. He made it to the end. After starting 2-4, he's now 8-6. He's gonna be playing you. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, and we'll preview Miles' matchup on the last week, this Friday, because it will be determined, and then whoever wins gets $850 plus my trophy, and the the loser essentially gets their money back. Which, I mean, they can't be too mad because it's like, all
Yeah.
right, you didn't lose anything, you lost opportunity at the trophy,
That's
but
honestly best case scenario, one like, if you don't win the championship.
yeah,
Like, obviously, they say second place is the first loser, but in
at
this
least you got
case,
your
like
money back.
yeah, that's the thing. In this case, like, there's actual financial reward, so, like, alright, whatever, no harm done there if, you just finish in second, but I do salute the 305 takes semifinal, matchup that we just had because it was fun, and I'm glad for the content that we got, through the podcast in the league that you started, and who would have thought that in the league that you started, me and you coming out of the same division would have met in the semifinal.
And then it's almost kind of like, if next week, if you win the championship, it's almost like roles reverse. Last year, you
From last
started
year,
it,
yeah.
I won it, and then if I
Yep.
started, Miles won it, I'll be like, all right, I need someone else to start it because I
Yeah,
did.
to start it next year. I was literally gonna say maybe we have
Someone else
Moises
just
start
started.
it so he can have that bounce back good luck
Like,
from based off last year.
because I mean, bro, man, it just hurts because after week one, I felt like my team was into the going down the tank, and I've made so many moves to change this team, and it did work out because I did make the playoffs and I got far. But man, it hurts. I was just like, it's 1 week away from. I felt like I know I have a real good shot of winning it. I picked up Trevor Lawrence as like a chess move. I was like, cool. I'm gonna downplay Trevor Lawrence. I'm gonna pick him up. I know when he plays against the Texans, he's just gonna do it. He's gonna go to win the AFC South, and it just all came crumbling down. But I'll I'll just think
And
about.
I'm very intrigued by what is gonna happen next week because we have some games that I think
A
either
lot of them are bad.
yeah, well, obvious a lot of them are bad, and then when you look at it, like some of these teams, I don't know why they would really try to go that hard. So it kind of just depends. So we have if we start from the top of the schedule, we have Cowboys at Titans, which is the Thursday night game, and the Cowboys go ahead and beat the Eagles this week, and it's like, all right, do the Cowboys, try to push for the division, or now that Gardner Minshew's there, so that's left to be determined. Cardinals Falcons, like I, I I feel bad for both of those teams that they even have to play the game. Like the Falcons are starting Desmond Ritter, who
Not good.
not very good. Trace McSorley started yesterday against Tom Brady. I that literally
We'll talk
sounds
about
like
that one later. Yeah.
Trace McSorley sounds like a keg softball league team. Dolphins Patriots should be good, but the Patriots big thing is like, all right, we have Bill Belichick. So I don't know if Waddle or Hill's going to really be doing anything. We'll see with that one, and it's going to be in
New
Foxborough.
England.
So
Yep.
who knows with the guy that plays quarterback for this team, and then Saints Eagles. Like, all right, I get it. The Saints aren't that good, but they're still alive. And then the Eagles are like, all right, we have Gardner Minshew, and Devontae Smith is going to be Justin Jefferson with Gardner Minshew. So I'm kind of stressed about next week's matchups as far as like what we're going to get from fantasy. But the one thing I do want to point out to you, did you see that ESPN Instagram stole our topic, man? They did a whole slideshow with stars and busts from the fantasy weekend.
I think it's easy that they hurt us. I think it's kind of
Easy, definitely,
easy.
man. Give us some props on that one. But there was it was a tough week for people this week because you had the Devontae Smiths of the world, and then on the opposite side, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins. So
Done.
hopefully a little bit more success for people that are moving on to the championship next week.
Yep, and everyone now is just, it's always thinking shoulda, coulda, woulda, but is what it
Till
is.
next season, brother.
Till next season. All right, so before we get on to our next topic that I'm really looking forward to because I have a lot to say about a lot of teams, we do want to give a shout out to our presenting sponsor, E2G Sports, who is helping us bringing you guys this podcast onto YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and various platforms. We want to thank everyone there. They were able to help us transition from audio only to audio and video. We thank E2G so much. And you guys could check out more sports news on NBA, NFL, MLB, all the sports on their website, e2gsports.com, or on their YouTube channel, where you can look at various podcasts outside of 305 Takes, Patriots Place, First Information, the list goes on. We want to thank you, 2G Sports, and now let's get back to the show, where now we're going to be talking of who has the worst situation in the NFL, and we got a lot of teams. We have Broncos. Let's ride. The Buccaneers. I don't even want to talk about them. The Cardinals. The Browns. We have the Saints. And for good measure, the Rams.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams, even though I didn't list them, Miles. If you want to name any of them that who you think has the worst situation, please feel free.
So for me, I think there's two that are in a tier of their own, and it's honestly a tie for the worst situation, and it's the Broncos and the Browns for me. Because both of these teams make decisions to go after, quarterbacks that were available this offseason. The Browns go ahead and acquire Deshaun Watson for 3 future first round picks. The Broncos trade for Russell Wilson. And as of this morning, after giving up 51 points to the Los Angeles Rams and Baker Mayfield, and
Who got
50
cut, people? A former first round pick who got cut.
the Denver Broncos went ahead and fired their first year head coach, Nathaniel Hackett. And let me just pull it up because he is now the one, two, three, sixth shortest tenured NFL head coach. And a couple of these, I mean, I don't even really count. Bill Belichick was only 1 day with the Jets. So, I
Yes.
mean, do we really count that? I get that
I
it's only
wouldn't
one
count
day. There was this guy named George Allen that says Rams, and it said he lasted 2 preseason games,
it.
which is wild, which is wild. And then we have Lou Holtz, lasted 13 game with the Jets. Bobby Petrino, two college coaches back to
Oh, I
back. Bobby
remember.
Petrino, who left the Falcons to go, I
I
believe,
read
coach
that
the
one.
University of Louisville.
Mhm.
Urban Meyer, who was
Yeah,
fired
real
after the
short.
video, surfaced, and his kicker saying that he kicked him in the game, or in practice. And then Nathaniel Hackett at 15 games. And I mean, if I'm looking at it, I would have to say the Browns, just because one, I think the division that the Browns are in is obviously Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Baltimore. So you have Joe Burrow, you have Pickett, which, I mean, jury's still out on Pickett, but I really like their skill guys, whether it's Pickens,
Yeah.
Fryermuth, Deontay Johnson will be frustrating. And, Najee, I feel bad for him because I think he is really talented, but he has to break 6 tackles before he even gets to the line of scrimmage sometimes.
He has the
And
same situation as Saquon.
yeah, where he basically has to go beast mode every time he's going to get a carry. But I think that I think that just 3 first round picks for Deshaun Watson. He hasn't thrown for over 100. He's thrown for over 165 yards once since he's returned. And when you look at it, I actually think, like, if they would have kept those assets, gone with Brissett this year, and then spent those assets on other facets of the team, I honestly think they would be legitimate playoff teams, like a
Yeah,
legit playoff team.
I
Because
feel like they could pull off a couple of playoff wins because Jacoby Brissett played well.
And I just think what, happened is their defense, they have Denzel Ward and they have Myles Garrett. So you're like, all right, they should have a good defense, but they don't have anything at linebacker. Their secondary depth is not very good. And then offensively, like, is Donovan Peoples-Jones really a wide receiver number two?
Uh,
Like, is he really a wide receiver number two in the year of 2022? And okay, and Joku, it's been what, 4 or 5 years of him, having a good game every third game. or being on injured reserve every third game. And you do have Chubb and you have Hunt, but when you don't have vertical downfield stretching receivers, like you can load the box. So I really think that was the biggest. That's the biggest team where I'm like, wow, I don't even know what you guys do. Because even if you fire Stefanski and say you bring in Sean Payton, like, all right, Sean Payton's supposed to do what with no first round picks and Donovan Peoples Jones and Deshaun Watson?
That's a good point. I you could blame me for in the heat of the moment how recent it was, but bro, I cannot say the Bucks. It has to be the Bucks for me because bro, for anyone that like wasn't paying attention to last night was arguably one of the worst games of football I ever watched in my life because the Buccaneers defense they played the backup to the
Yeah.
backup of the starter. They played Trace McSorley, who was a joke on social media, where it was like Trace McSorley, the song came out saying he was the GOAT, cool. Like it was funny. I had no issue with it because it was. Like it was really funny.
And Trace McSorley's only claim to fame NFL wise before this was being the quarterback that started for the Ravens when their game had to be moved to a Tuesday
Tuesday.
during the COVID season.
Yep. And that was essentially it. And then the Bucks defense, they played well for like the majority of the time because I was like, all right, 3 points. That's what he should have. Like at most, a field goal. But then the Buccaneers offense, man, Tom Brady just somehow was able to like magically able to pull it off. 3 and out, 3 and out, horrible throw after horrible throw. And then it is unreal that he has never developed a connection with Mike Evans because they simply just cannot get it together. Like every time I feel like he throws to Mike Evans, it's going to be off.
Well, and I feel like the ones that they actually do connect on, it's always a legal formation or holding.
Exactly. Like it's a hold. There's a penalty on the play. And do they actually throw the ball deep? All they do is dink and dunk. Like, did you see that play where it was like 3rd and 4? He threw it to Mike Evans, and the Cardinals just dropped 8 back, and they were like,
Yeah.
"All right, boom, knocked it down."
Yeah.
I was like, "Because you guys can't push the ball down the field. Like, this team is so bad. You can't run the ball.
They
You
don't
can't pass the ball."
And the only time they look good is when they get into that hurry up, which we saw against the Saints. We saw a little bit last night. And the crazy thing is that for as much as I get on Cliff Kingsbury, last night in the fourth quarter, he was like, all right, it's Christmas. I want to go home. Like they were just dropping all the DBs back, playing like 7 yards off. And they was just quick out, quick out, quick out. And that's the only time the offense looked any type of good on for the Bucks.
Oh my gosh! And at least for like the Cardinals, their excuses they're down to their 3rd string quarterback. That's a legitimate excuse for like being a bad football team.
And
But
they've
for
had such a weird season. Their GM leaves last week because of mental health issues. They lose
Mhm.
their quarterback 3 plays into a game on Monday Night Football. They had to fire one of their coaches leaving Mexico City.
Like, oh my gosh! And then, bro, oh, I just don't know the Bucks. Like, and Tom, I've never seen Tom Brady look this bad the whole year. Like, Tom has been bad.
And it's crazy because like for as bad as they've been, because of how bad the division is, we can't write them off. Because
I
if the division was legit like 5% better, not even like, oh, we need like a certified Eagles in that team or we need a Buffalo. And no, if they just had a team that was above 500,
that's it.
we could be doing the Tom Brady football funeral for the rest of the season
Hmm.
if they had one decent team in that division. So that's why I'm like, all right, for as bad as it's gone, which it's basically been as bad as you could possibly imagine a Tom Brady team looking without him being injured, which is the key thing. Because we saw, we've seen instances like when they had Matt Castle in New England, and even then they went to the playoffs as a wild card team. So
10 and
it was
6.
yeah. So it's just like that's as bad as you can imagine a Tom Brady led football team can go. And I get that all these teams are going to play each other with New Orleans, Carolina, and Tampa Bay, but at some point you have to look at it and be like, like, is Tampa going to win a playoff game?
Yeah, like I know if they play Dallas, correct me if I'm ever going to be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Dallas might open up as like a 5 point favorite if
I,
that
I I
matchup
do
happens.
think so, but the only thing I'm scared of is that Dallas is the chokers of our
Yeah,
lifetime. So
they
like somehow, some way, they're gonna get like a field goal block. They're gonna line up for like a game-winning field goal, get it blocked,
and
and then
miss
be
it.
returned for a touchdown.
gosh.
That's how they're gonna lose that game, and then everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, Brady, Brady, Brady." But yeah,
No.
Tampa Bay's in a tough spot. Really, their only saving grace is that they're in a terrible division. If things haven't worked out for Brady this year, and I don't think he's the biggest fan of what Brian Leftwich is doing with this offense. So he
But
will be a
also,
free
did
agent
you
after this year. So maybe they get the out of Brady leaves, and then they can kind of just hit the hard reset and
yeah.
try to get the next great quarterback in the draft.
But did you hear that rumor that apparently, like, after the coaches, like, leave, Tom Brady has his own meeting with the offense, and then the coaches
Yeah,
fire mid-game? If that
yeah.
is somewhat true, I'll be like, "Bro, Tom, you even deserve more blame than ever."
I
Like
mean, yeah, especially if that's what he's doing and the offense still looks the way it does.
oh my gosh, that is just some bad football. Like, it's a bad football team, and man, knowing that a playoff team has to come out of this division, it just hurts. It hurts. I would love to send the NFL a petition and say, "Can I please eliminate every team from the NFC South and put in the Detroit Lions?" Please,
But
I would
also it's
be.
both the South. It's the NFC and the AFC South because I
At
saw a
least
stat that
Jacksonville looks good.
yeah, but I saw a thing that no team in either the AFC or the NFC South is above 500. The best that
Yep.
we have is a team at 500.
Oh man. And just to think of what a team like the Washington Commanders, they would be in first place right now.
Yeah, or even the New York Giants, who
They
I don't
would
think
be in
we're
first
the
place.
most confident in. And talk about a weird football team that is the New York Giants.
At least I could say this: they were competitive against the Vikings. I
Oh
was like,
yeah,
all right,
100%. But
yeah,
I've
you're
never
right.
seen a team that has so many receivers that like every three plays are just going to be like, yeah, I'm going to drop this wide open pass right over the middle of the field. Like I'm going to have it in my hands and I'm just going to throw it to the ground.
And the defense played like solid considering the all the injuries that they have and the team they were playing against. I was like, all right, you guys actually played
And
solid.
even Daniel Jones, for as much as I
He
don't
was
like him,
good.
he was not bad. He was not bad at all in that game.
Yeah. So I had to give the Giants at least credit. They were competitive and took the second seed all the way until the very last second to win a game. So
Yeah.
credit to them on that, even though I feel like there's been a lot of games where the Giants have like, uh, but
But I don't know if for the Broncos, man,
it's
because
tough.
I mean, if you're them? What is the plan? Like you just have to go all in on Sean Payton now and just
I
hope
mean,
he can do what he did with Drew
I
Brees
would
to Russell
try
Wilson.
at this point because, bro, for my star quarterback to be roasted by Patrick Starr
Yeah, that
during
was funny.
and that clip
The
going
Nickelodeon game.
viral, I need a complete like reset at the front, like head coaching. It's like I am begging Sean and say I will give you part ownership if you accept this job.
And so this is a team that was sold this summer, made the trade for Russell Wilson, and what is this like their fifth coach since
The Super
Peyton
Bowl.
Manning?
Yep.
'Cause they had Hackett, who they just let go of. They had Vance Joseph, and they had what was the older dude that was the defensive coach?
Oh, Vic
Vic
Fangio.
Fangio. Yeah, and Jason
But I
Fox was
don't know because I mean, apparently Sean Payton's trying to form a team with Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator. So I don't know if Vic Fangio wants to go back to Denver.
I don't know if he wants to go back to Denver, and I mean he is a really respected defensive coach, so that would make sense for because that's kind of what McVay did once he got to LA. He brought in Phillips, so he could just run the defense basically, and then replace Phillips with Brandon Staley. But I mean, if I'm Sean Payton, I am praying to whatever God I believe in that the Indianapolis Colts beat the Los Angeles Chargers tonight. And
Yeah.
then the Chargers
Yep.
somehow,
I
some
was
way
thinking the
don't
same thing.
make the
Like
playoffs, and I get to sign up to be the
the
head coach of
Chargers.
Justin Herbert. Yeah.
But
That if I'm Sean Payton and his agent, I am praying to all of the football gods that somehow, some way we get, Nick Foles to come and get some of that Philly special magic back in there and knock off the Chargers and have somehow have the Chargers not make the playoffs so that you could take over that job. But I mean, I do, who are the candidates that we would legit get excited about this offseason?
I mean, in terms of like head coaches, I mean,
I mean, because D'Amico Ryans is probably going to get
yeah,
some looks
I
because of
think
how
he
good
will.
that San Francisco defense has been. But again, like I don't know, like if there's going to be buyer's remorse because the
Yeah.
Salah thing really hasn't worked out too well. in New York.
At least
But
with Nico
I think
O'Brien,
he's a
it's
good
more
coach.
scheme.
Yeah, I
'Cause
think he's
he's
a good coach for Saleh, but I think they made a mistake in taking Zach Wilson, so that's kind of really set them back.
the only
Uh,
thing with Salah is I see why people like vouch for him. I'm like, cool, I get it. But I also said this that 49ers defense that went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G is like at the home and that lost to Kansas City. Do you know how many first round picks were on that defense?
oh
Like,
yeah,
if
yeah,
you have that
Solomon
many first
Thomas,
round picks on
Bosa,
that
yeah.
defense and you're
Um,
not good, you're just a terrible, terrible coach.
yeah, but he still even because they had
He's
Quinn
done great
Williams
in the
was
draft. I will not
yeah,
take that away from him. He's done great.
but even if you look at it, I mean, I just don't know any of the candidates that are really going to be like, oh yes, I can't. But at the same time, I wasn't. At this point last year, I wouldn't have known Mike McDaniel from anybody else. But
Yeah.
I also wouldn't have known Nathaniel Hackett from anywhere else. And that's my biggest thing because I saw this as a tweet. Do you think at any point, maybe later, after everything is said and done and all these guys are out of the league, do we get the report that the Broncos only hired Nathaniel Hackett because
Because of
they thought
Rodgers.
it was their way to get Rodgers?
I believe so. Because I mean, Aaron loves Nathaniel Hackett. He loves him. So I see that, but
And then we also have to factor in while we're talking about these situations, is there two quarterbacks that maybe move and want to be a package with their coach? Because I think Brady's definitely a wild card going into this offseason. And then I think Rodgers is a big wild card going into this offseason. But
yeah,
if they make the playoffs, he most likely stays.
I think so. Because at least with the Packers, you're seeing the progression of Watson, Romeo Dobbs. Like you're seeing the progression that these young receivers are making, and it's like okay. And if they make the playoffs and are competitive, I do think Rodgers comes back. But we could even see maybe Derek Carr getting shipped out
Yeah, that'll be
from
a
Oakland.
definite interesting spot and
Well,
what
my bad,
happens
from
with him.
Vegas.
Yeah.
He could be shipped out. There's definitely some stuff, but in terms of like coaching candidates, um, I would probably say I think Kellen Moore might get a couple of looks. I think he might get some interviews, and Quinn,
Dan
their
Quinn.
defensive
Yeah,
coordinator.
their defensive coordinator.
I feel like he's definitely going to get a ton of looks. I mean, maybe the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator might get some
Okay.
looks. I
Shane Steichen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think he
he's
might
been
get.
good.
I think he'll get some looks. I don't know if he'll get hired depending on the team, on what his vision will be. But I feel like those are maybe some because I think D'Amico Ryan should have a job. Steve Wilkes, I think Steve Wilkes should keep his
That
Carolina job.
Hey man, the fight and Steve Wilkes have
Yeah,
been something else because I was
yeah.
expecting. I have a freaking. I was going to talk to you about this later. I have a bet on their over under for the season, and I thought that was cruising to the under, and now
They
they
might
have
hit
a
the
chance
over.
of getting it. Yeah, no, what the hell, man?
So I think Steve Wilkes, I think he should keep the job in Carolina because I feel like he's done a great job with them.
I mean, I
Um,
think they look way more competitive than they ever really did under what's our boy's name? Matt Rule.
yeah, so that's why I think Wilkes should get the job in Carolina. I feel like he's solidified it to at least earn the shot.
And then I
Um,
want to know what these candidates think of like a possible job like Arizona. Because you do
Arizona,
have Kyler in the back pocket, but he's
who
probably
knows?
not going to
Maybe
be
even
available
Tampa.
for a while.
Maybe Tampa. If Tom Brady comes back, but he says, "I do not want Todd Bowles as the head coach," or I forgot who's there.
Brian
Byron
Leftwich, yeah.
Leftwich as OC. I want someone different. I want someone new. Who knows? Maybe Kellen Moore, Dan Quinn gets one of those jobs, or because I mean, Sean Payton is definitely going to be looked out there. I think Frank Wright might be let go this year from the Colts because I think that the Colts just might want to hit a hard reset. Oh well, no, Frank
Wait,
Wright
no,
was
yeah,
released. Yeah, so
yeah, because
I
they got
think Frank
just
Wright.
Saturday.
Yeah, it'll be Jeff Saturday. Oh man, that's how messed up that team's got me. But I think Frank Wright might probably get a couple of looks just because he did do a great
Dude,
job in drafting the whole team outside of the quarterback.
who honestly might come back is Bill O'Brien. Now that I'm thinking about it, Bill O'Brien might be on his way back to the NFL.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe. I definitely know no one's gonna probably hire a Patriots assistant because at this point,
Oh, you don't think Steve Belichick's getting a job?
I think he has to. I feel like
There's no
maybe
way.
after 2 more
There's no
years,
way.
if he really shows that he can do it with anyone on the defense,
There's no way. There's no way.
maybe he
The
can get a
only
couple.
way that could happen is that if he left under his dad, went to
Yeah,
another team, and then they had the number one defense.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could see it happening, but
No, that's
it's
why,
been
like, if he could prove that he can do great job with the defense outside of New England, or if his dad just simply says, "You control the defense. I'm not gonna chime in on anything. Every decision will be made by you." And if they do great, I feel like he could get us some looks.
and it's crazy because like,
Oh, also
if
Wink Martindale. I think Wink Martindale might get a couple of looks now because the Giants defense, they have been playing good considering all the injuries.
ooh, I know it might be tough, but he did flirt with it, last year, and he was a quarterback for one of the teams that does have an opening. What about John Harbaugh? Because
Man,
he
that
did flirt with the Vikings last year
he did, but
before they went with Kevin O'Connell.
I think it has to be the right team. It has to be the right team.
I
I
could
feel
see
like
the Colts, honestly.
the golden standard for the offseason for any team that wants the head coach, they want the Chargers position.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Honestly, I don't know if a team would do it right at. Oh, dude, honestly, Flores should get
He
consideration.
should. He's
I
a
I
good
I think
coach.
I think as a team, you would have to be like, "All right, like, we're gonna find you an offensive coordinator." Like,
Mhm.
that's the number 1 rule, like, you don't get input on this offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But he was definitely a good coach down here, just couldn't figure out the offense, and then, uh, with Harbaugh, though, he did play quarterback for the Colts, so I could see that. He
Maybe.
went to Michigan, he's already got that Midwestern in him, so we could see. Definitely, and there's gonna be some surprise names that come out of nowhere as
Yeah.
well as, we
Definitely.
always kinda
A lot
have.
of assistants that were just like, "Really?"
Yeah, I mean, the Hackett thing, I think, was like, "Oh, wow, this is kinda out of left field."
Mike McDaniel, that was how kinda out of left field.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, oh, Les Frazier from the Bills.
Oh,
He
that
might
would
get
be a good one. That would
he
be a good
he
one
would get some looks. I feel like
because 'cause
he
they're
could.
actually playing really good defense as of late too, and
Yeah.
I think it's helped their team a lot because I don't think they've asked, Josh Allen to have to be perfect in any of these games recently.
Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely a lot out there that can be going on, but I mean, we'll see. We'll wait until the once Monday hits of the NFL season's over.
That Black Monday.
Yeah, me and Miles will be here. We'll try to read off some of the names of who was potentially let go,
Yeah, and then we'll give you
quit.
once we have a full picture of how everybody's season went, what their record went, is going to be, and then we'll have an answer on like where these first round picks will shake out. We'll give out, power rankings of, if we were, in consideration for these jobs, what would we have, most attractive job to least attractive job.
And then after that, I mean, we're mainly going to be talking about the playoffs and how we got some money on a couple of teams, but we'll be doing that soon. But guys, we will be back on Friday. Miles is going to give somewhat of his game plan on Friday
Yep.
the for the championship round because I'm hoping Nick is listening because hey Nick, if you're listening, you've heard Miles' strategy the whole year, so maybe try to chip in some clues or do something. But guys, that is the end of our show today. We'll be back on Friday.
Till next time. Peace.